I repair old watches as a hobby, so yeah, I prefer to wear vintage watches usually. Now I do wear those in the real world, but not recklessly. No, that's what my Casio and Timex has been for. As well suited as they are for beater service, I wanted to try something else. With the popularity surge of AliExpress watches, I wanted to see what the hype was for myself. Whenever there's a new watch release, there's usually an initial swarm of videos on it. Some might even fall to the review category, but most are just sponsored product overviews. Those are helpful, but I thought it might be better to share my thoughts after spending some time living with it more long term, especially since it's a so-called homage. This unboxing footage is from 8 months ago, but the rest of the footage is current, showing the wear accumulated up to now. So let's get into it. Starting with the obvious, there is no originality here. This is a design grab of a popular 37mm piece in the mid-tier or entry-level luxury category, which in itself takes inspiration from a vintage 7922 model in the brand's historic catalog. And that vintage piece was actually a lower cost version of a pricier, higher tiered cousin. I'm being careful to not use the word homage because I really hate how we've distorted the meaning of the word when it comes to watches. We've lost the true meaning of the word, a lot like irony and literally. Whatever the origin, it's an attractive watch. But the fact that it's an unoriginal design, to put it kindly, could be a turnoff for some people. I'm not here to judge that, but it helps that I don't hate the look and that I'm not so attached that I have any reservations wearing the watch, knowing that it might get scuffed or banged up. For this watch, the most important thing was going to be the fit and comfort. I have a 6.3 inch or a 16 centimeter wrist. The dimensions of this watch are pretty much in the sweet spot for me. It's a 37mm case, the bezel is 38mm, the lug-to-lug length is 45.5mm. The sapphire crystal is low domed, and since it's not housing an automatic movement, the case back is flat. This helps get the watch down to about 11.5mm. Most people focus on the case finishing. It's a nice mix of polished and brushed surfaces. But one thing that I noticed is how the case tapers downward at the lugs, and it really helps just wrap around the wrist a little bit more. A lot of similar shaped cases tend to be very flat slabbed and just kind of sit on top of the wrist. It has a 120 click bezel with an aluminum insert. It's smooth with no play and the alignment is perfect. It was a bit stiffer than I would prefer, especially when I first got it, but it has loosened up a little more to my liking since then. In addition to the markers on the dial and the hands, there is a single lume pip on the bezel. I appreciate the lume on the second hand. The 200 meters of water resistance is helped with a screw-down crown that secures nicely and is signed with Watchdives' updated shield logo. Not that I've had to use it very often, because with Seiko's VH31 movement inside, I'm getting within a couple of seconds of accuracy per month. It's also nice that it ticks 4 times per second, so it has the look of a mechanical watch for mechanical watch enthusiasts, and it bypasses one of the most common complaints about quartz watches, not hitting the marks perfectly all the way around the dial. Moving on to the bracelet. I've seen worse bracelet for the money. It has a nice taper from 20mm down to 16mm at Clasp. The fitment at the end links are actually pretty good. Maybe not perfect, but pretty good. It does use split pins in the links, which are fine. They do have just a tiny bit of wiggle, but for this kind of money, you have to expect some sort of compromise. The clasp on the watch that I received has Watchdives' old branding on it. It has 4 positions of micro adjust. It's a single pin lock with a double push button release. The hinge pin is maybe a little bit loose, but it's not going anywhere. It's just more of a how it feels sort of thing. Now, I may just be unlucky with my wrist size, but I did find myself using the micro adjust a lot. I wonder if maybe a couple half links would have helped. But stick around for the second half of the video because I'm going to try a clasp upgrade. Okay, here's my quick take. I have no complaints about the performance, and the size is exactly what I was looking for my wrist. It wears pretty comfortably most of the time. Despite the micro adjust, I just find it sometimes a little too loose or a tad too tight. which is a pretty common problem, I think, to most of us. The finishing really is pretty good, better than any watch in this price range has any business having. It's difficult to argue against the objective value when you're just looking at the specifications. Some will have a problem that it's an unoriginal design, but some people would buy it simply because it is that design. That's an individual decision, but for me, it does lose a little something. There are micro brands like Laurier and Baltic who come up with inspired designs, but they're still original. I guess to go back on a more positive note, it does offer great value and utility without too much worry about scuffing or marking it up. So I guess there's some peace of mind in that regard. That said, I might actually come to appreciate it more as it starts to develop its own charm over time, accumulating those character marks. But wait, I do have one more thing. I ordered the new on-the-fly adjustment clasp from Watchdives to see if it would improve the wearability. Watchdives says it's compatible with several of its other watches, including the WD7922 here. I did message to confirm that before ordering. Already I can see a difference in width between the link here and the gap for the clasp, so we'll see how that works. Go ahead and push the pin out. This is the tool that Watchdives supplies with the clasp. The clasps cost $30. And we'll just line this up and push. There we go. Now you might notice I'm going in the reverse direction of those arrows here, but this is a pin and collar and it's non-directional. But to be safe, you know, probably best practice to do it in the direction of the arrow. You can see that little pin there. Now this tube is what gives the resistance, so make sure that stays in there. Just, you can see here that this has no resistance, so it will need that tube on the inside of the other piece there. So we'll line this up. Just gonna line this up and gently feed this pin through at first. I'm gonna try and press it a little further with the back of these tweezers. And then we'll get out the hammer. Well, this is clearly not up to the spec of the rest of the watch or bracelet, but we'll keep going and see how it actually works on the wrist. And this side, I'm pushing out the pin in the proper direction. This pin is a little different from that first pin. I'm not sure you could do that with this one. Pull this guy out. You know, before we put the pin in, let's just size this up and see how it compares. Yeah, that's a pretty tight tolerance on this side. All right, I'm gonna put this little tube in here. Remember, that's what gives that pin some resistance. We'll get our pin started. I see that other piece is falling out, so we'll get him back in there. Helps to be ambidextrous sometimes. All right, we'll get this started. Make sure that tube is cleared there so it's not impeding fitment. I'll gently guide that pin through. I need to grab those tweezers to see if I can push that in a little more before we get to the hammer. That guy is not budging. We're gonna have to go hammer time here. Okay, so that got ugly. I don't know if it's I was impatient or maybe the tolerances aren't quite right, but they did include a spare. You're certainly not going to be able to push that pin back through with that tool. You're going to have to use a hammer to drive that pin through, which they do not supply. Maybe I was a little too aggressive with the hammer. Just remember, multiple light taps, just be patient. One of these little bracelet jigs is also helpful. They don't supply that. All in all, it's not that difficult. I think a first timer could achieve this. So right away, you'll notice the difference in the logos. The new Trident logo is on the new on-the-fly clasp. And it's definitely longer, so you may need to remove an extra link while you're at it. to compensate for that. There's a little bit of protective plastic still on here, so we'll remove that here in a second. The tolerance on this side is pretty good. On this side, it's still a little puzzling. I mean, it secures on there. I don't like that it's like that, but maybe it won't affect anything. So let's try out the sliding mechanism here. It ratchets with a press in, and there's a button you press firmly on the inside to pull out. It's a little stiff. It is new. Also probably takes a little while to get used to doing. But it certainly beats having to break out the spring bar tool, especially on these days during the summer where my wrist will it'll go up and down multiple times a day because I'm in and out of air conditioning. Let's get that plastic off. I've put a thin layer of silicone grease on just one of the ridges, and it's really helped. All right, well, let's see how this fits. And here it is on my 6.3 inch or 16 centimeter wrist. It's definitely broad. It fills the underside of my wrist, but it's not too large. It's a little thicker. I've worn the watch with the new clasp just about every day for a few weeks now. After first installing the new clasp, I found the length pretty jarring actually. But after wearing it, the length really was a non-factor. That said, you might actually have to remove a link to make up for the difference when you first install it. It's the extra thickness though that might be more of an issue for some people. It might not seem like a big deal, but I did notice it, especially while working at a computer. I'm not too impressed with the play. It's essentially a misfit at the clasp and the link at the attachment point here, but it really hasn't been a factor that I've noticed in wearing the watch. So the question is, did the new clasp make the watch wear any more comfortably? Well, yes and no. You might not find a magical sweet spot where you don't feel the need to adjust the watch, but the adjustment is easy enough to where I can find a pretty comfortable fit pretty quickly. And just to remind you, I did pay for this clasp. It wasn't provided. And was it worth my $30 or so? My only real gripe is that fitment issue with the clasp and the link. I just wish it just felt a little better. Being able to adjust the bracelet so easily has made me more likely to wear the watch. And while it might seem like a minor thing, I actually do prefer this new logo. That's all I have for this one. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please put those down below. And I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, take care.